I'm Shirley Heinz, Mayor of the City of Centerville, and it's indeed a pleasure for me to talk a little bit about the city's newest project, namely Benhams Grove. As I have seen it take shape along North Main Street, I'm just amazed. I'm amazed at how much has been done to this specific property. With all of the help that we have received, not only from the staff and the city council and also the committee chairman, but the many, many volunteers, I think it's into the thousands, that have helped to make all of this possible. We indeed appreciated the interior decorators and their beautiful design of all the rooms, as well as all the landscapers. But again, none of this could have happened without the complete support of so many people within our community. Sometimes people say, well, how did all this get started? Well, one cold wintry day, I was sitting in my office in January of 1991, and I received a phone call. And the phone call was from Amy Troman. And Mrs. Troman said, I think that my mother and I have some property that perhaps the city might be interested in. So I said, well, would you like to make an appointment and we'll come in and talk about it? So that's what we did. She came in the next week. And we started talking about it, and I said, well, where is it? What part of Centerville is it in? So she took a map out, and I said, oh, that's the Gerber property. I was under the impression that it had been sold. She said, no, she said that that had not worked out, and the only avenue that her mother and she had not pursued was perhaps the possibility of the city buying it and turning it into an historic home and some green space, similar to what has been done in the city of Kettering and some of the other areas. So I said, well, I will bring it before council and see if there is interest in it. And of course there was. So then she met us one cold wintry Saturday morning in January, and we went through it. We walked the property, and after that the council thought this might be something very appropriate for the city to do at this time. So to make a very, very long story concise, we officially took ownership of it in May of 1991, and everything else is history. I appointed Sally Beals as chairman of it, and so many things have been done by the staff and by subcontractors to make all of this possible. And at this point, I want to thank the many volunteers and all of the people on the city staff and the city council who have made this possible. I think this is a place that is going to be enjoyed not only for this year and next year, but probably for the next 50 to 100 years to come. And it is indeed a city contribution to the Architectural Preservation District. I hope you enjoy it as much as we have in putting it together.
The Centerville City Council, and in that capacity it was my privilege to chair the renovation of Benhams Grove, and it's also my privilege to welcome you here to this very nice City of Centerville facility. We took approximately 9 months to renovate this, and we did it in the context of a designer show house, which allowed us to showcase many of the area businesses and also to have a pretty good 2 weeks of celebration. We will now use the facility as a focal point for the heart of the city, as well as it can be rented out for reunions and picnics and meetings, as well as wedding receptions. We also will use it for quite a few city functions.
Benhams Grove is on land that was originally part of a 50-acre farm owned by Aaron Nutt Sr. The 1812 tax records show Aaron Nutt owned 2 houses valued at $250. The land was transferred to his son Aaron Nutt Jr. in 1813 for $700. A later owner of the farm, Lawson Allen, sold off the 10-acre tract that would become Benhams Grove in 1843. A schoolhouse was designated on half acre of the northwest corner in the early 1800s. In 1874, the brick building, which is now the Mutual Federal Savings and Loan Association, was built. In 1884, Joseph A. Benham, a bachelor and prominent Centerville resident, acquired the property at an auction. Benham built the present Victorian-style farmhouse on the tract about 1885. Joseph Benham, who was born in the township in 1838, grew up in Centerville, where his parents, John and Albina Benham, had a general store. During the Civil War, he served with the 131st National Guard at Fort Federal Hill in Baltimore. Benham became the owner of both the northwest and southwest corner properties at Main and Franklin Streets, operating a general store at each site at different times. It was said by many that these were the best pieces of business property in town during the post-Civil War years. In 1888, the property was sold to Wilkinson Wright for $4,100. The property changed hands several times over the ensuing years, housing poultry farming operations and other activities typical of a small farm. A man of vision, Edward H. Smeating, convinced his wife Bessie that the development of the Dayton area would be to the south. On August 16, 1937, they left their home on Richmond Avenue in Dayton and moved to Centerville. The Smeatings and their heirs, the Gerbers, Robert and Dorothy Smeating, became the last direct descendant family to occupy the property at 166 North Main Street. During the years that the Smeatings occupied the residence, several noteworthy improvements were made. The original front door facing Route 48 was moved to the northwest side of the house. The freestanding garage was moved and attached to the main house for convenience. The small chicken house near the main house was remodeled and turned into a party house known as the Picnic House. Since Edward Smeating was sales manager for NCR, the Picnic House, horseshoe courts, and formal gardens saw many guests. For 54 years, the house was home to 3 generations of the Smeating-Gerber family. Bessie and Ed lived in the house for 11 years until Edward's death in 1948. Bob and Dorothy purchased the house January 10, 1949 from the Smeating estate. The adjoining property, known as the Orchard, was purchased from Dorothy S. Gerber's brother, Edward L. Smeating, on September 14, 1949. The Gerbers and their daughter Amy lived and maintained the house and property for an additional 43 years. The kitchen was remodeled, the garage turned into a family room, and a stone patio was laid and the brick sidewalk was installed. The barn was used for the family's garage. Although the property was never a working farm during the Smeating-Gerber ownership, apples, peaches, and pears were grown in the orchard, chickens were raised, and sheep were kept. Both families had truck gardens, and the storeroom in the cellar was always kept full of homegrown canned goods. On May 9, 1991, the City of Centerville purchased the 8.6-acre property from the Gerber family for community use. The house and property was always the center of life for the Smeatings and the Gerbers. It has housed birth celebrations, engagement announcement parties, wedding receptions, and funeral visitations. It is only fitting that the property continue to be a place where the community may have similar events.
My name is Sharma Stone, and I'm the design coordinator. I've been the design coordinator for Benham's Grove since its inception last year. This is my daughter, Jody Walcott, and she's been assisting me in helping coordinate all of these efforts that have been going on here. The way I got involved in the project was when the city first bought the Benham's Grove property, they were going to just do some cosmetic touches on the house because it was really in very good condition at the time. And my business is restoration and interior design, and I volunteered to coordinate or to help them do just the cosmetic touches on the house to get it to a point where people might be able to rent it for meetings and functions. Sometime shortly after that, Councilwoman Sally Beals had the idea to have this become a showcase house and have designers come in and work on the project, and in that way get the house ready for use by the community. And since I had already volunteered to help with whatever was happening here, I went ahead and continued that volunteer photographer to help with the coordination of the property for the designers to use it for a show house. My concern at the time was that the house was done in such a way that so when the showcase was over with, the city would be left with a property that could be used as it was, and that they would not have to come in and do a lot of re-wallpapering and painting and make a lot of changes. In previous showcase houses that I've been involved with, designers have had the opportunity to do whatever they've wanted in their rooms, which has been great for them, but it hasn't always been great for the end result of the house, in that you might have very contemporary wall coverings and colors in one room, and right next door you might have very traditional wall coverings and colors. And that doesn't help the house to flow. And I didn't feel that would really be to the city's advantage to end up with a property that was left in that condition. So I suggested that we set up a color palette and a design guideline that all of the designers follow. And when we first met with the designers, we presented this idea to them, and they were very open to this and really have just done a wonderful job kind of understanding the spirit of what we were trying to do, which was to stay in keeping with the Victorian theme of this house. This house was built in 1885, so it was built during the Victorian period, although it was not a high Victorian in that it was a very ornate house. It was a country farmhouse, and we wanted to keep that feeling for the house, both in the colors and in the style styles that were used in the house. So the designers really seem to understand that, and as anyone who can see who's come through the house, they've really stuck with that idea. The way the colors were chosen was that I scraped down on the outside of the house to find what the original paint color may have been, found that it was actually the buff color that the house is painted now. And we know from pictures and from other information that the shutters were always a dark green, so we stayed with the dark green color. The other two colors, the taupe that we've added for trim, was added to accent some of the vertical architectural elements on the house in a subtle way. The red was a popular color, the reddish brown that we used on the windows, and some of the other trim was also a popular color at the time. And during this era, the window sashes were often painted, most often painted a dark color, either black, dark green, or red. And we selected the red because it would just add some extra interest to the house. All the colors that we selected were from the Benjamin Moore historical color line. So these were actual colors that were used during the Victorian period that are still offered if you ask for them at a Benjamin Moore paint store. We've just been, as I said, so thrilled with the way the house has turned out. The styles have been followed, the colors have been followed, and we just feel it's been a wonderful project.
The dining room is called the gathering place. It's where the people in the original home came to gather in the evening for their dinner after they worked in the chicken coop all day. Everything in the room is authentic looking. As you can see, the dining room, the dining table has the old country look to it. Everything here can be purchased at Elder Beerman's.
Hello, I'm Diana Steen from Centerville Design Associates, and we'd like to welcome you to the morning room, which we think would be a delightful place to begin the day. This reflects the Victorian fancy for all things European, and particularly those things that are French. The wallpaper was introduced in 1850 and has been used consistently since. And we think that we have tried to convey an attitude of pleasantry and a very relaxed attitude that prevailed then. A lovely retreat.
My name is Debbie Pummel, and I'm from Orndorff and Associates, and we designed this room. It is the original sun porch. We called it the Gardener's Retreat. We've got a 2-layer window treatment with the floral patterns that we carry throughout the room. The molding and the stone floor are original to the house, and we took the stencil pattern from the scroll pattern on the molding. Columns, you know, in the house and stuff.
But I think it's nice that we just really wanted to have something different and something that, so people could see that this can be done. You got a foyer, a bathroom, you know. Thank you.
Okay, the kitchen was done by Lucan Interiors, and the cabinets were done by Castle Kitchens in Williamsburg, so we worked together on that effort. Everything basically was taken out of the kitchen. The wall over on the other side was taken back about 3 feet because there was an entrance to the cellar over in that corner, and so that gave it much more space in here. We wanted something just really light and airy, but still trying to keep within the feeling of the house. And I think that's throughout the whole house. You can see that everyone's tried to stay within the color palettes of the time that the house was originally built. The house, one thing that's nice too is when this is all, the design show house is over and we used for the catering and whatnot. So the kitchen was kind of an interesting room to do. As people have said, why isn't there the stove top? Most of the food will be catered for the different events, whether it be a wedding or a private party.
This is the family room in the Gerber house. This is probably the most changed room in the house of all the rooms, and it's probably the one that went through the most different changes while the reconstruction that the city undertook went on. Originally, this room, as the Gerbers occupied it, had stained pine woodworking throughout the room that was dark in color. It had an acoustic tile ceiling with 2 false beams that went across the room in this direction, roughly dividing this space into thirds. This building was originally a separate building. It was a garage on the property that was turned at 90 degrees and more in front of the summer house or the cottage on the property. The Gerbers moved this building over, attached it, so you had an attached garage to the main house here, and it served as an automobile garage with the side with the bay window being the front garage door and entryway to that garage. The Gerbers then remodeled this building into a family room, put in the picture windows, the pine paneling, and finished the room to a higher level of trim, and then began to use the barn as the garage on the property for parking automobiles.
This room is called the Secret Garden. It's done by Library of Design. We're located down on Brown Street. My name is Cammie. We decided to create this room to be a very relaxing environment. That's how we came across the Secret Garden. We wanted it to be a getaway where people could come to get away from the pressures of society and the fast-paced business world. So we chose a softer colors, the softer values of the colors that we were given to use.
Hi. Go into the bathroom
Again, this bedroom was in excellent shape, and very little work was done in here, primarily reconstructing the window into a door that goes out to the landing of the second staircase going on the outside of the house, the wrought iron stairway going downstairs. It was a building code requirement. The crown, or the picture molding, was replaced around the ceiling with the crown molding. The ceiling is original. There were some closets that were built into the wall over on the east side of the bedroom. Those were removed and changed into floor space. This mantel was here and was in excellent shape again and just repainted and used. Mrs. Gerber indicated that this mantel was the original mantel from the downstairs fireplace in the living room and was moved up here when they redid the living room and built a much bigger, newer mantel for the fireplace in the living room.
Interiors did the room. The furniture is the period of the house, just happens to be mine. And it's interesting that my uncle was born in the bed in 1897. And the washstand, the bed, and the 3 chairs came out of a family farmhouse on 63 Brant Pike and was part of my uncle's family, his mother's and father's.
On interiors, and we were working with an all pink tile bathroom, so we decided to accentuate the pink a little bit but go with more whites and greens, and took a stripe to get heights to the ceiling because the tile went so far up, and then added the border around the ceiling to get height to it also, and then just went with pink and green and white accessories to just add a nice light area look to the room.
My name is Sheila Garrett. My company is the Garrett of Bellbrook. It's located in Irma Bombeck's farmhouse, which is also 150 years old. And there are some outbuildings there which have been converted into a studio. This is the south patio, and the attempt here was to mix old and new pieces to stay with the flavor of the house. I chose neutral fabrics out here to allow nature to take precedence over the pieces that were being displayed.
The south side of the house, when we first started construction of the house, one of the first things we did was excavate for underground power lines to the house. In excavating a trench along 48, across the southern yard of the house, we right away found a limestone foundation that's over in the southwest corner of the property along State Route 48. We went across that at one point, then the trench crossed at another point. There was a lot of limestone and brick rubble in the area. We think there was an original cottage there, the foundation of which we, went through. Later on, when a telephone cable was put through, another trench was dug through about 3 foot deep, a little closer to State Route 48, a little bit behind where the fence is now. That excavation, again, went through the same foundation. So we now have pretty well pinpointed the location of the foundation of an earlier probably house on the property that obviously has been destroyed.
Right. The foundation itself has the classic dimensions of the early cottages of Centerville. It's about 20 feet in length, about 18 feet deep. Again, we crossed through the walls. I think we went through the back wall initially when we made the original pass for the electric. Then when we made the telephone cut, we broke through the two separate walls on each side, and we found, you know, in the rubble, we found some of the bricks from the fireplace. We found some old pottery, which is on display in this area. Also around the patio, we found scatterings of old pottery and china and things that has been dated. Some of that stuff dates back to the 1820s or previous, which lends credence to the original house on the site. And we believe that house to be that of Aaron Nutt's, one of his first houses, I think, for his son, Aaron Nutt Jr.
I'm from Norman Miller & Son. My name is Barbara Folkerth, and Pam Brown and I did this space for the city. When the space was turned over to us, it had most recently been a party house or a picnic house for the last family who owned the space. And we took it and thought it'd be a great little getaway idea, so we turned it into a cottage or a mountain retreat or fishing cottage, something along that line, a lodge look piece. Playing off the idea that that has become somewhat of a popular look in terms of home furnishings. And so that's essentially what we did, made a space that's party-oriented, but certainly somewhat indestructible. It takes care of itself. And we've had a lot of really great response to it, I must say, so we're real pleased. And we hope that the city will get as good a response, certainly with what they've done, in terms of renting it for the future as we can. So, wonderful.
Design Studio. My name's Beth Treon. Worked on this room with Debbie Dyer and Betsy Bishop, also from our studio. And we designed this as an afternoon or weekend retreat. The ceiling and the walls were all hand painted, and we used a fabric lattice over the windows to create a real intimate space. And the family collectibles kind of finish out the intimate feeling. It's great. Super. Sisal. Sisal. That's it. Sisal and wall. Aren't these wonderful? Display. That's from the Timberlake collection also. That and this table are from the same collection that they used in the other room.
The loft area up here, and we're really happy to be involved with Benham House. It's been fun.
My name is Carol Ann Blaine, and I own a shop in Oakwood called the Purple Pig. The area that we had in the barn, we tried to give the effect of a European cottage look along with the garden area. We've combined antique furniture imported from Germany along with new merchandise also to give a rustic, colorful look. We've also included artificial fruit and freeze-dried flowers that look real.
The majority of the landscaping has been coordinated by the committee, which consisted of 3 City Beautiful members and myself, as well as Jim Katesky. The landscapers were told to get a proposal together and drawings together, at which time we would make the final decision on whether the drawing was applicable. We asked the landscapers in particular to have low-cost, low-maintenance gardens, not only for the city to have an easier way to upkeep, but also for the people coming through the show house, that they could afford to put these type of gardens in their own homes.
The Gerbers had collected through the center of town a lot of the old limestone sidewalk pieces that were removed for various reasons during widening typically and reconstruction of some of the streets. So they brought these by truck to the site and used them to build the limestone patio that you now see on the east porch area of the house. One of the features that was added was the limestone fountain and the brickwork around that fountain. This was all the result of the Gerber family donating the money to build this limestone fountain on the property and the brickwork around the fountain. And actually, constructing the fountain, it was done by the Hanauer brothers. Okay, the bell has been here all during the Gerber stay, and the old movies that the Gerbers were kind enough to loan us to make copies of. I saw pictures of the old bell first on a wooden post, just a crude wooden post. We think that this is one of the wooden posts that was perhaps left over when they redid the front porch on the house. It's at least a similar style post, and if it wasn't one of the original front porch posts, it probably came off of a similar building of the time in Centerville. Yeah. Okay, when the city first purchased the property, there was the foundation. It was mostly just a concrete slab that went about where the currently stormwater retention basin has been constructed. The foundation went probably, what would you say, Steve, 300 feet?
300 feet it's 300 feet long by about 30 feet wide. It was a substantial chicken house.
So this was used back in probably the 20s and 30s as a large, chicken farm, and it was a very sophisticated chicken coop from what we understand in terms of the inside fittings. Mrs. Gerber tells us that after it was no longer being used, it was burned by the local fire department as a practice to destroy it. We ended up having to remove the concrete foundation and have it hauled away. There was also a large cistern that was more up on the western part of the site next to 48 that was used to pump water back to the chicken coop. We had to fill that cistern in. It was a rather large, deep cistern, and cover that over to make way for the construction of the driveway and parking lot. There was also a small chicken coop behind the garage going to the east of the garage, and that chicken coop was in pretty bad shape. The roof had caved in and it had gotten a lot of water damage over the years inside of it. So unfortunately we had to remove that chicken coop, but we did measure it carefully before it was destroyed by the city, and we created a CAD drawing of that chicken coop, and both for archival purposes and with the thought that in the future we might be able to recreate a portion of that on the site if that ever seemed appropriate to the city. The rest of the buildings were saved on the site, the barn, the summer house, of course the main house, and rehabilitated. In constructing the parking lot that started, last fall, one of the problems we knew we would encounter is the closeness of the bedrock to the surface, because we knew we had a lot of limestone on the grounds. we didn't really know how much until the contractor started doing his excavation work. We had to dig down, in some cases 7-8 feet, to install underground drainage tile to service the asphalt areas for the parking lot. In digging that drainage tile, there were a number of places where the contractor, after digging 2 or 3 feet of soil, had to just start banging over a period of days through that bedrock, breaking it up to get the storm tiles in. So we stretched out our construction time schedule considerably. Also, we found as we got back toward what we now believe was an old stone quarry, which is the pond on the property, we found bedrock virtually at the surface there. We had to redesign the parking lot and raise the whole surface of the parking lot approximately a foot because we couldn't excavate into the bedrock to put the parking lot down. So in the process of constructing the whole parking lot, we were constantly battling the bedrock and its closeness to the surface of the ground.
In the pond itself, the limestone rocks that are laying up around the perimeter was excavated from the parking area. What we plan on doing with those limestone rocks over time is to lower them down and level them off more down towards the water line of the pond to give it the feel of the original limestone quarry, seeing the natural rock outcroppings from that quarry. So what we tried to do was make the Benham's Grove project look essentially like it did in terms of the farm and the agrarian character that was part of this property for so many years. We tried to conceal as much as we can the vehicular and sort of the modern day aspects of the property and emphasize the farm aspects.
Now, this is Joanne Treffinger, who was asked to do this. Joanne, how did you get involved in being the chairman of this Dining at the Grove?
I don't know. I've been kind of rather concerned about this for maybe 2 months.
But I believe Mayor Hines called you, is that
Mayor
correct?
Hines did call me and ask if I would do this.
Okay.
And I knew I had lots of friends I could depend on.
Joanne has lots of friends. When Joanne asks, you go.
Right.
Some of the doorways didn't meet commercial code, so we had to enlarge them to 36-inch doors.
Explain kind of just quickly how you enlarged the doors, what the process was, you saved the trim.
Yeah, we tried to salvage as much of the original moldings and rosettes and plinth blocks as possible. As far as expanding the doors, that involved some fairly significant joinery. We had to add stiles on either side, and those had to be rabbited into the doors themselves in order to make them look like they were original.
Some of the doors, there were actually 2 or 3 doors needed that were not originally native to the house because we built a bathroom in the back room. We added a closet for the mop sink, and so we happened to have a warehouse full of architectural salvage items, and we fortunately were able to get some of the doors to match the house to use there instead of using a new door from a lumber store or having one milled specifically to match.
Hi, I'm Judy Gilliland and I'm assistant to the city manager. I was the project manager for the Benhams Grove renovation in the Centerville Designer Show House. As you can see, the house, barn, cottage, and grounds went through many changes during the renovation work. A lot of these changes were required due to the building code. We converted from a private residence to a public facility, and obviously the building code requirements are much more stringent for a building that will be used by the public. Luckily, a lot of the decorative woodwork and trim and other historic items had been preserved over the years. However, this did present a special challenge to the staff and contractors that worked on the project. We knew that we wanted to retain the historic value and significance of the buildings, but at the same time we had to update them so that they could be easily used by the many different functions that would take place here. Take the doorways and trim, for example. We knew that we wanted to retain the doors and the decorative woodwork around the doors, but at the same time all of the doors needed to be widened anywhere from 1 to 6 inches due to the building code requirements. So with the help of some very skilled carpenters and a little extra sensitivity to the historical value of the property, we were able to adapt the building to meet our needs. Today, if you visit Benhams Grove, you'll see the remnants of the Centerville Designers Show House and Gardens. This event took place nearly a year ago in April of 1992, and it served as the public debut to the community. We literally had thousands of volunteers from the community working alongside the interior designers and landscapers, and the results of their hard work is truly amazing, as you can see. Today, Benhams Grove is used for a multitude of purposes. It's a perfect setting for nearly any function. We have booked at Benhams Grove a lot of weddings, baby showers, private parties, business retreats, picnics, cookouts, and so on. But when Benhams Grove isn't booked, we invite you to come and take a leisurely stroll through the gardens and grounds. Benhams Grove is for the entire Centerville area community to enjoy, and we hope that you'll take advantage of this wonderful asset.